So at what point does this channel become a retro shooter channel? Because at this point, I'm seeing a pattern here. A very Ken Silverman-shaped pattern. Okay, look, in my defense, I review games I've always been interested in playing. It just so happens these three are all on the same engine. I promise the next game won't be. Probably. Shadow Warrior is a first-person shooter video game developed by 3D Realms and published by GT Interactive back in 1997. It's the last game in the Triforce of amazing build engine games I'll be showing off. A Triforce that's quickly turning into a foursome if Iron Fury has anything to say about it. Oh god, not a foursome. Duke will have a roid-induced heart attack. The past two games each had their own flair, their own wonderfully violent personality. So what kind of personality will Shadow Warrior have?
Who wants some wang?
Your sins is regard.
Jesus Christ. So, are we going to pretend there's a story? You could theoretically play the entirety of Shadow Warrior and think it's about a walking, sword-wielding penis joke, turning evil ninjas into sauce and watching rabbits breed.
Have a fun little rabbit, haha.
But no, it does have some kind of a story. Japan, 1990X. The conglomerate Zilla Enterprises owns every major industry in Japan, but its nefarious owner, Master Zilla, wants more. Summoning the power of the dark side. No, not that dark side. He plans to take over the entirety of Japan. Only one man stands in his way, his ex-bodyguard and super ninja, Lo Wang. Seriously, his name's Lo Wang? Fucking hell. Knowing this, Zilla sends his new forces to kill Lo Wang's mentor, Master Leech. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is that? And to stop Lo Wang before he can ruin his plans, it's time for Wang to rise. And become the Shadow Warrior. As you can probably guess, none of this is mentioned during gameplay, but it is in the manual. You know those little books that used to come with physical copies of games? Nowadays you're lucky to even get the game alone, let alone with a book telling you how to play it. Oh no, they'd slap a price tag on that too. Speaking of slapping, Lo Wang isn't against using his fists to beat the demons back into the Shadow Realm. Just, don't punch any walls. Unsurprisingly, that hurts. Use the sword for that, and for turning enemies into small bite-sized chunks. Perfect for a shish kebab. What, you think Lo Wang is above cannibalism?
Lo Wang kinda hungry now. Tastes like a chicken.
He's got shurikens, because of course he does. He's a ninja. I'm pretty sure that's required by law. They stick in walls, flesh, and ghosts, but good luck with that. You're better off using official ghost-busting tools. You know, firearms. You find an Uzi in the back of a pickup truck, just out in public. Are we sure this isn't America? Actually, I kinda hope it is America. The last time I went to Japan, things didn't go so well. I don't want to talk about it. The Uzi is this game's pistol/machine gun, and is the most basic firearm in this game. Not that basic means bad, as once you have a second one, these things spit ammo like an overenthusiastic llama. It's useful against your basic ninjas and ethereal beings, but loses its luster later on, especially against whatever the hell this thing is.
Oh, maybe if I close eyes it go away.
You're gonna need more punch for that. Like a shotgun, or 4. It's called the Riot Gun, which makes me question what kind of riots they have over there to need a gun that looks like this. It's got 2 modes, one for your basic murder and another for punching your way to the Earth's core via slug rounds. The downside is barreling around a corner with a shotgun isn't going to end well in this game, especially if you're playing on the penultimate difficulty like I was, which for a first playthrough was a terrible idea unless you enjoy the unceasing coldness of death. Now that's where the grenade launcher comes in. If there's some ne'er-do-wells hiding around a corner, just chuck a few nades round to visit and try not to get all the blood on your sandals. I'd give it a wide berth before firing though, its splash damage is rather liberal. You've got sticky bombs for setting traps, something I never did because I are stupid, a railgun for erasing enemies from Galaxy itself, and a guardian head you fire by fingering its brains. Ugh. Now if you want to repaint the room, then the missile launcher is what you're after. It's fast firing, does a ton of damage, has a heat-seeking mode, and if the need arises, if you're about to get turned into Wang paste, you have one last trick up your sleeve. A fucking nuclear warhead. Just don't be in the same room when it goes off. I would say this feels overpowered, but Do you see how much damage these anime wannabes do? No, this makes us even. Sort of. Wait, what the hell is that? You do have utility items available, but I barely use them. You have caltrops that are only useful if you're somehow ahead of the enemy or are clairvoyant enough to know when the enemy is going to come round the corner. Various grenades I never really found a use for or just forgot. Except the smoke grenade. I used that to punch Zilla in the face. Night vision, which I used twice. I mean, it worked, what else do you want? And last but not least, you have a toolbox for some kung fu DIY. You use it to repair vehicles in a few levels, my favourite being the tank. Because it's a tank. Do I really need to explain why? Word of advice, if you're starting your first playthrough, familiarise yourself with the quick save and quick load buttons, because you're going to need them. Even a pack of basic ninjas can drain your health to nothing in the right circumstances, so when the game starts throwing in rippers and shadow ninjas, you'd better hold on tight, because you've just won an all-expenses-paid trip to the afterlife. You've got cat creatures that cling to walls and scratch your eyes out. Suicidal miners, spooky ghosts, Shrek's buff cousin, warrior women, and hornets? Oh god, why? No! Wait, I can fix this. There we go. These little buzzing fucks are deceptive. You'd think they wouldn't cause that many issues, but these things are made of pure concrete. Make a jump over anything while they're buzzing around. I dare you. Low also isn't much of a ladies' man. Not even of the 2D variety.
Those real tits? Those real tits? Whoops, Lo Wang dropped soap. You bend over, get it.
And don't get me started on the goddamn Shadow Ninja. Ah, my eyes! In a nice change of pace from the bosses in Duke Nukem 3D, where you've just circled them until you got too dizzy to think, and end up programming Duke Nukem forever, in Shadow Warrior the bosses will either still be able to hit you, or the map will make it really hard to stray for them. Unless you can walk on lava. If you can do that, does that make you the Antichrist? The first boss, the Serpent God, is easy enough. Hit him with a nuke, fire some smaller nukes, and watch him run away like the sentient handbag he is.
Hey, come back here and finish fight! Ogre, skelly, snake, shitface.
Oh, don't worry. He'll be back. Up next is the Sumo. He's so big his feet cause a shockwave.
Get it? It's because he's fat.
He also has deadly farts, which really describes the level of maturity this game sits at, which would explain why I enjoyed it so much. And if that wasn't bad enough, he does look mildly horrifying. Counter his farts with nuclear fallout and rain death on him until he sees lunch. God, I do not want to imagine how greasy that is. Like licking 4chan. The final boss is our old buddy Zilla. In typical Japanese fashion, he's in a giant mech, which, if their programming is anything to go by, will soon be handed off to a small child. The boss himself isn't so hard. In fact, he can be circle-strafed if you're careful, or you can use a smoke grenade and beat him like a man. See, it's the stage that's a problem. Zilla decided that of all places, he wanted his final confrontation to take place with his worst enemy on a giant seesaw. I mean, A for effort, but coming from a football stadium to a nightmare temple to this, bit of a letdown. Then up, then down, then up, then down, then up. This is the one time I wouldn't recommend using nukes, because you can't hide. We're not Klingons, and I don't want to die in battle. I want to die covered in nukes and fired at an alien planet, or failing that, cocaine. Instead, use conventional firearms, or just missiles, until he flies away like my aspirations. Oh, don't worry, he'll be back. Unlike my aspirations. Now, while the seesaw was rather goofy, most of the levels are pretty cool and fun to explore. They're all big, full of secrets and fortune cookies? They give you some useful tips like, man who'd stand on toilet high on pot. You should kill all business associates. And, okay, what the fuck? You've got fun levels like Seppuku Station, where you throw yourself out a window, make some mints, and play with some RC cars.
Go, Speed Racer, go!
Rising Sun, where
Row your boat gently down to the stream. Oh, I think my dinghy hanging out.
Jesus.
Unfriendly Skies, where you can play some pachinko, make some luggage, and stop two sumos from taking up all the airplane seats. And the one level I remember the most, Dark Woods of the Serpent. Why? Well, it's longer than a David Lynch film, has a whole area dedicated to rippers, including a mama ripper, you know, in case you're not dead enough yet, a magic carpet ride, and a pillar puzzle that can fuck right off. This level does show one of my major problems with this game. While most of the levels are fun to explore, sometimes they're just a little too big for their own good. Now, me getting lost in a build engine game isn't exactly anything new. Saying that I have no sense of direction in these games would be an understatement. But some of this is just over the top. I spent a good 20 minutes on some of these levels just backtracking, and if you think I have the attention span for that, you're massively understating my ADHD. All jokes aside, I did enjoy the levels from Blood more, but the ones we have here are fun and do look interesting with their kung fu and action movie themes. And being able to run over a ninja with a tank is something I'd recommend to all budding kung fu masters. I'm gonna be honest, I had a much harder time writing a review for this game compared to, say, Blood. Reason is, I just didn't find it as enthralling as Duke or Blood. It's not that Shadow Warrior is a bad game, not at all, it's just... well, the maps are fun, but I like the maps in Blood better. The guns are cool, but I like the guns in Duke and Blood better, except the nuke. More games need a nuke. Some of the enemies are nifty, but the shadow ninjas exist. The music is fitting, but the only song I found kind of memorable is the game's main theme. And in a way that describes my experience with Shadow Warrior quite well. Fun, but if you gave me the choice, I'd rather play Duke or Blood again. Now, the version of Shadow Warrior I have comes with 2 expansions, Wanton Destruction and Twin Dragons. Twin Dragons was released for free back in 2008, but Wanton Destruction wasn't released until 2005. I haven't played much of them yet, but I will. I just need a shadow break. There was a 3rd expansion called Deadly Kiss, but it was never finished, with only screenshots showing it even existed. Somewhat recently, a few hardcore fans actually managed to get their hands on what remains of Deadly Kiss, and are working on fixing it up and piecing it together. So if you want more wang, I'd keep an eye on that. For me, however, I need a break from the build engine. I'm starting to see Ken Silverman in my dreams, and he's holding a copy of Tech War. Ugh.